And I want to share you some pictures. It's show and tell day today. It was my favorite time in school. It's about the only reason I went to school as a little kid is for show and tell. And I guess I still get to do that because, a few weeks ago, April the 14th to the 29th, I was, of course, gone to Botswana. In 1978, my mom and dad and my two brothers and I moved to Gaborone, Botswana. And the church was young, the church was tiny, the church, even the country itself was relatively new. It only been an independent nation for 10 years when we moved there. And so the capital city was small, so like 70,000 people in the capital city. And now it's over 400,000. And so a lot of things have changed and grown, but so has the church. The church has grown. And a lot of the young people that my parents worked with are now retired, or the elders, or the older folks in the congregation. And we got to go and see some of them and meet a bunch of new people. But getting there is the interesting part, because it required, there's no fast way to get to Botswana. And we had to start from Dallas. I had to fly down to Dallas, meet up with my brothers, and then, to Lubbock, and then go to Dallas. And from Dallas, a 14-hour plane ride to Doha in Qatar, and then 8.5 hours for the next plane ride, and then a short one up to Botswana. And then we had to backtrack that. Actually, that 14.5 hours on the way home was 16.5 hours because of the difference in the jet stream going the other direction. Crazy long flights. But this is where it started. Here we are in Lubbock in the airport, and this was a trip of a lifetime for us because due to circumstances and things, this would be the first time in 45 years that the three of us stood on the soil of Botswana at the same time. When my brother Jeff left Botswana in 1980 at 17 years old, that was the last time we were all three there. And so this had a lot of significance, a lot of meaning, and just a lot of joy for us to do this together. And Jeff's wife, Stacy, also came with us. So it was the four of us on this trip. And so we get after, we're smiling there because we just got off that 14.5 hour flight and we're in our first layover in Qatar. It's middle of the night. It's about 2 a.m. right here. And we met a new friend there at the store. And we're just glad to be off the plane, but we have to get on another one. And but we finally made it to Botswana, and there we connected with one of the most important and sweet, wonderful people in my life. This is Bakanuki and Fila. She's my big sister. She was a young nursing student when my parents moved there, kind of a young Christian, and one of the most likable people you probably ever meet. In the I think it's 1 Corinthians 12 or Romans 12. You have lists of spiritual gifts that people can be given by the Spirit, and one of those is encouragement. She has encouragement as a gift in probably to a level that I have rarely seen in anybody else I've ever known. Just, you look up encouragement, her picture should be there. Just a radiant, happy, joyful person, and she was our hostess. She's our friend, and she was our person that just drove us around. That's her car behind, and we went a lot of places crammed in that car. And so we're just having our hellos. Now, first thing we did starting the next day after we got there was attend the SAIL conference. That's what this is. SAIL stands for Southern Africa International Lectureships. For about 50 years, all through the Southern Africa, there are the Churches of Christ in Southern Africa every Easter weekend hold this event. And so they'll come from Malawi, from Lesotho, from all over South Africa, Botswana, from Eswatini, which used to be Swaziland, and all kinds of places, Zimbabwe, and just countries around. And the event moves from place to place each year. A different church or collection of congregations will host it. And Botswana hosted it back in 2014 was the last time, and I praise the Lord, I got to be there with my dad. And My dad actually was responsible for the Botswana being able to host it for the very first time in 1985. I was there as an AIM student. It was right before we all had to come back to the States. And so Botswana hosted it, and this is where it was hosted, in an area of the city called Tlokeng. It's a kind of a suburb, kind of a middle-class suburb now that's growing. And this is right at the edge of the growth path of this. And the church in Botswana has been able to acquire about 5-6 acres of land and they just gotten this the last couple of years and began on their own the development of this acreage. They put this tent there. They've actually put some structures there, some landscaping. It's an amazing story. When you consider that the church is not wealthy, the church is not huge, but they're faithful. And it was a huge, huge leap of faith for them to acquire this property, and then they have to develop it. And it was done almost entirely with African money. It's not like they said, hey, Americans or some other country come and give us a lot of the money. They're doing a lot of it themselves. You see here, they've done some work, putting some development there, some landscaping and things, some parking areas and some different outbuildings. And this is off to the side. There is the children's area. They have an actual playground there. And this is where all the kids were hosted for those couple of days. And they had children's classes and places to play and things for them to do the whole time. And then you look a different direction. This is at the kind of looking out toward the entrance. They had a building there at the entrance, and this is the actual way to come in. And there was people, man, there was thousands of people that came to this thing. So there were cars and buses from many countries and many towns and many places, and it was wild. It was cool. It was like a carnival atmosphere and a lot of excitement going on. And inside that big tent, at the front, you would see this. And so you would have speakers, you would have songs, you would have choruses. There were some choirs that came, or just a choir over there just means a group of people from a church that get up and sing together. And we heard some choir from Botswana, from Zimbabwe, and a couple of other places. Some of the most amazingly beautiful singing you can ever hear in your life. I heard somebody put on Facebook the other day, and I think they're right. I said, in heaven, the Africans will do the singing for us, because we can't touch the beauty and the power of the depth of their singing. If you turned around from that stage and looked backwards, this is what you see. Wall-to-wall people, about 2,000 people there. And a lot of technology and a lot of just a really sharp setup there. And it was a lot of fun. And so for the couple of days, we would have speakers there and worship sessions there, sermons there, and in between these sessions where everybody was in the big tent, you'd have breakout classes, and where I taught some. This is the chorus from Botswana. It was just some people, they'd practice and they sang some songs wearing the traditional blue style of the traditional Botswana culture. And then we'd have meals, and meals were interesting because you would have about 3 or 4 different places where there were food lines. It takes quite an operation to feed a couple of thousand people a couple of times a day, and this is one of those, and just some of the outbuildings. This is the kitchen. And so you had this amazing group of people that would just work night and day to cook in these big pots food for all of these folks, and it took a lot of work, but they did it, and I don't think this is how we're going to have our lunch today, but maybe, I don't know, we'll see. That building behind her is the kind of the restroom building, because when I heard it was going to be, because usually the sale conference was in they would rent a school in wherever the location was. They'd rent a school because you need a school for the big auditoriums and then the classrooms and then a lot of parking. And usually they would rent a school. It's Easter weekend, all the schools are empty. And when I heard it wasn't going to be at a school, it was at our own piece of property, I thought, oh no, it's going to be out in the bush somewhere. There's maybe going to be a couple of porta potties. And this is going to be scary. But no, they had built this building. That building was brand new back there, and it was really large and really clean and just really nice modern restroom facilities there. And so There would be people selling stuff and people letting you know about different ministries. My brother Jeff brought his disciple trips material and put it out on a booth there for people to know about. World Bible School was there showing about their ministry and their materials and a lot of things. This is now you had about 3 other tents outside the really big one, and this is where some of those breakout classes were held. And I love how the names for each of these tents to indicate which was all Bible names of these tents. Inside this one, this is a men's class, I believe, and you would have a couple of hundred guys in there and teach in that. See, for example, this is one of the tents. They would name them all Gethsemane. I think one was called the Upper Room, and one was called Nazareth, and so on. Pretty neat. I got to watch here. They'd set up this pool outside, and there were 4 people baptized at this one time right here that I got to go watch. And it was really cool. They would sing and they would worship, and there was just excitement. And I think 3 young people and an older person were baptized there, and it was just quite a special moment. And then just a lot of fellowship. A lot of times in between sessions, people come and talk, and you would see some people, some of them, especially on Sunday, were with some, have their formal traditional outfits on, just some of the most beautiful clothing, especially the folks from Eswatini in the way they dress. So we would have a lot of speakers. Usually it was in one language, and they would rotate what languages, and it might be in Zulu and translated into Sutu or something else. And so you usually have one speaker and one translator. And then so that was the sail event, and we just had the greatest time there. Got to meet so many people that I'd never known before, and then reconnect with some from back in the day. But here's one of the things I got to do was teach a couple of classes. So the second day, I was able to teach this class. It was on, and they assigned me a topic on the supremacy and the centrality of the cross. The cross was the theme that week of the whole event was about the cross. And so all of the main speeches and a lot of the classes had to do with the cross, which I love that. And so I was teaching on the centrality of the cross to these folks right there. And I had a ball teaching them, and it was just so cool. Because I thought I was going to have a translator, but nobody came, and I guess, so I got to hog the whole time, and just go for it and preach the word. And then the next day, I taught a youth class. This is teenagers. This is young people, and man, they're sharp. They're sharp. After the class, one South African young lady, I think she's about 17 or 18, came up to me, so smart, so articulate, and she let me know she's about to, within a couple of months, going to be heading to Massachusetts to attend MIT to study aeronautics. And she was asking about the possibility of Congregate Churches of Christ in the Boston area. I was like, and she wanted to make sure she had a place to worship. And I was just so impressed with this young lady. So I got to teach this class, and it was fun. I made a lot of noise. This tent, by the way, was a large rectangular tent, and they had just put a divider in the middle, just a fabric divider, and there was a whole nother class just over the side of this fabric. When I saw that, I went, uh-oh, because my opener was an activity where I had bought 12 of these blindfolds, like you would put on if you wanted to sleep on the plane, or at home with it just dark, and I asked for 24 volunteers, and they get into 12 pairs. One of them puts on the blindfold, and the other one, with just their voice, has to give them the directions, and we made a little obstacle course through the crowd. And so the guide is not allowed to touch them. You can't steer them, but you can just speak words. And we got 12 pairs trying to go through this, and we sent the 12 pairs outside, and then I told everybody else, okay, when they come in, try to mess them up. Make all the noise you can, because there's going to be a point to this. And it was about listening to God. It was about faith and trust was the whole message I was getting to. And Satan, like he will try to whisper other voices, culture and society and social media and movies and TV and internet and all of those things are do this, go here, believe that, act like not this way, that way. Don't think of that. Here's what you need to believe. Here's what needs to be important. Here's what you need to think about and say and act like and wear and blah, 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 blah. And so we're bombarded, aren't we, with about 1 million voices, and you're just trying to sort out which one is for my good, which one is right, which one is truth, from all of the stuff trying to steer you wrong. And so we created that in this by, here's one of those pairs. She's trying to lead this guy, and with 12 pairs and then everybody else in the class getting up going, no, you're wrong, get up there. It was pandemonium, total chaos, as it was supposed to be. The other class didn't really appreciate that. And so very politely at the beginning, they come up, oh, brother, can you please, we have a class. I'm like, I'm so sorry. It'll just be for a few minutes. It's a and I tried to explain, and they, in another minute, oh, brother, please, could you, we have a class. And so I felt really bad about that, but I thought, I got to do this. This is a big part of my lesson. And they all got up and picked up their chairs and they left, and they went and had their class outside, solved the problem. I was like, sorry, but it worked out. At one point, we got to meet, that's Bakanuki there on the left, and this lady is a member of the church and I think a friend, maybe a relative of hers. She had some health issues, and she's not able to stand. We spent a lot of time talking with her, praying with her, counseling her, and stuff like that, and got to do that. We got over to Bakanuki's house one night, and we had a singing, a bunch of us around her dinner table this is where we stayed while we were in Jabroni. And it was just a really special time of fellowship and connecting and praying and singing and all of that. These two young men were living at Bakanuki's house. The one on the right is her grandson, and that's his best friend on the left, and that's my brother Jeff in the middle, and we became Uncle Jeff, Uncle Chris, and Uncle John to them really quickly. And these two are some fine young men and have great senses of humor, and we had a lot of fun chasing each other around and messing with each other and teasing them, but I also got to encourage them to make Jesus number one in their life, and talk to them a little bit, and actually this young man on the right, I'll show you his father, and there's a little story about his father. And so a lot of it was reconnecting and making new friends and with some old ones. Let me introduce you to some people. This is Molabatsi. He was a young man when my parents moved to Botswana, or our family moved to Botswana. He was just a young, sharp guy, member of the church, just had a lot of energy, a lot of fire, a lot of enthusiasm, just a fun, likable, neat guy, always going and doing things. Wait, no, I got that wrong. That's, you're going to meet Molabatsi in a minute. This is Jeffrey Sabuhai. And he used to live across the street from us when we lived in the first place we lived in Botswana, and worked in an electronics store. And he now lives out in the edge of the Kalahari and works a farm. And this fellow in the middle is Dennis Malepa. He was one of the young men that my dad worked with to train as a preaching student, and kind of my dad's little backyard preaching school. And he eventually went to preaching school, went to Sunset International Bible Institute, got his master's at ACU, and became the minister for the Broadhurst Church of Christ there, the main Church of Christ in Gaborone. I'll show you that in a minute. And became their minister, and he's also one of the elders there. And one of the other ones is my brother Chris. I don't know if you know which one, you can tell. But and of course the gentleman on the right, I'm not sure who this is. This is Bakanuki. She's my sister. She's family. And she's been like a literal sister to me almost all my life. And we had so much fun together. This is Molabatsi. Molabatsi was an amazing young man, and he came to this. He always had a lot of spirit, a lot of energy, and kind of almost surprisingly, he was there, and he had been struggling in his marriage and struggling with his spiritual walk with God, and we were able to spend a lot of time with him, trying to do what we could to encourage and to perhaps gently restore him. And so we did some counseling, we did some praying and worshiping together, spent a lot of time with Molabatsi. He's a good guy. And we were all just kind of reconnecting here. It was a neat moment because we didn't think we'd get to see him, but we did. This lady just next to me is, she's the sister of Bakanuki's husband. Before Jeffrey and Philo was Bakanuki's husband. He passed away, and this is Jeffrey's sister, and I got to see her and spend time with her, and she's a sweet lady, and there's some other people. I don't remember who they are. These are members of the church in Botswana. Good, sweet people there. This is Peter Manuel. He is lifetime long, practically missionary to South Africa. We found out and got to kind of reconnect with, he actually went with my dad to the Sunset School of Preaching and graduated at the same time in 1968. Same as my dad. So my dad and him have known each other most of their lives and are old friends. We got to see him and spend some time. Well, it turns out, you see that they both have these rings. Those are sunset rings. You can get, my dad had one, and it says Sunset School of Preaching, 1968. So does Peter Manuel's. My dad gave his ring to my brother Jeff. That ring has traveled the world on the hand of a missionary, or two missionaries now. One my dad and one my brother, and so it was a cool moment to realize they had these, and it was kind of a neat thing. The second Sunday we were there, we got to fellowship and worship with those at the Broadhurst Church of Christ. This was just the Church of Christ. It was like the only one in town when I was there as a teenager. But now there are several. And so it's called because Broadhurst is kind of the area of town. You know, that's the name of that part of town. And that building, I actually helped make some of the bricks. This project, I helped clear that lot. When we were given that lot by the government, there was nothing but bush out in that area. And now, of course, it's houses around for miles. And would put a lot of work into that. And my dad and some others actually constructed that building after I was back in the States. And but that's where the church meets. This is inside that congregation, and just a lovely fellowship and just wonderful people. And they actually let me preach. That was cool because I didn't have an invitation, but during the week they contacted Bakanuki and said, "Hey, one of the Smith boys want to preach?" And my brothers are like, "Not me." I'm like, "I do." So they let me speak, and that was just it was such an honor to be able to speak. And then this gentleman is the minister there, who's normally would be preaching, and he's translating into Setswana. And so I wish you could have been there, just if nothing else, to hear these two fellas. These guys get up to do the Lord's Supper message. And the one on the left was speaking English, and the fellow there is just translating into Setswana. So the message is from the guy on the left, and he gets up there, and the first thing he says, "This is the first time I've ever spoken." I thought, somebody get this guy into preaching school, because he was articulate, he was clear, he was smooth, he was hysterical. It was funny, the content was accurate and biblical. It was everybody, he had everybody in stitches. It's the way he was saying it. It was fantastic, and such potential. So afterwards, we all gather around, we talk there, and have a good time to say goodbye. That was be my last time to see most of these folks. And so that's what I got to do. There's a few more things. Oh, let me introduce you to this guy. This is somebody's really special to me. This is Meshach. I've known him quite a long time, and we got to meet again and spend a lot of time visiting together. Because see, here's us a few years back, but here's where we started. 1984. That, and see if you can guess which one's me. But I'm an AIM student, and we're going through the area around about a square mile around the new church building there. And we're canvassing it. We went through it 4 times with different tracks, canvassing it, and we would ask people for Bible studies. We would invite people to come see us and worship. And I met this guy in the yard there. And a young fella, we're both just a couple of ragamuffin, scrappy, scraggly young fellas. And he spoke great English, a lot of fun, neat, cool guy. We struck up a really good friendship. And he wanted me to study the Bible with him, so I would come on my motorcycle every week, and we'd spend a couple hours in the evening sitting out in the yard studying the Bible, and I got to baptize him, and then I lost track of him. I go, not too many, this would have been 84 or early 1985, I'm not sure exactly when. But by May of 1985, I had to go back to the States. We had to leave early because we lost our coordinator. His funding was pulled. It was unfortunate, but so they didn't have internet back then. I didn't even have an address or a phone number, so I lost touch with him for 29 years. And I wonder from time to time, I wonder if he ever stayed faithful. I wonder if he stayed with the Lord, stayed with the church. Wonder if anything ever became of him. Turns out, I find out, not only did he stay faithful, he had an aptitude and a desire to teach and preach, and the church there sent him down to a preaching school in Cape Town, South Africa. And he now is the preacher at the Mohoritani Church of Christ across town in Gaborone, Botswana. And so I'm just so grateful that I get to be a little part of that. This is Jonathan. That's Bakanuki's son. We got to go see him and spend some time visiting with him a little bit. And there's a neat story here. Remember I told you that young man, those 2 boys that were next to my brother Jeff, the one, that's his father. And well, when I was an AIM student in Botswana, we had kind of a youth group, and a youth group means single under 40. Back then. And so we had like a cookout one time, and we were out in the bush, and we had a cookout with the young people and the AIM team and all that, and we were just having a good time. Well, Bakanuki she was married to Jeffrey and Phila, I believe, at that point, but they had not been able to have a son. And when we're talking about prayer requests, I believe, if I get the story right, because she loves to tell this story. And I felt bad because when she told it the first time, I was like, I have no memory of saying this. But she tells me that I did. And that she talked about how much they wanted to have a son. And she had 2 daughters, wonderful ladies, but no son. And so after the event is over, as we're heading back to the cars, I get up beside her and I put an arm around my big sister and I say, Bakanuki, here's what's going to happen. You and Jeff are going to have a son. You're going to have a son. And so when you do, I'm calling it right now. You're going to have a son. I don't know how I didn't know, but I just, wanted to encourage her. And I said, and when you do, you got to name him Jonathan. That's my full name. I was probably just messing around. I probably just, not realizing that could actually happen. Well, guess what? Who knew? But, and I didn't even know for many, many years, they did have a son. And so, sure enough, they've named him Jonathan. His Setswana name is Tanashi, but he's also got the name Jonathan, named after me. I think that's kind of cool. And so, here's again, we got to visit. This is when we were counseling with this lady here. And she was a pistol, I tell you. She was something else. She was a lot of fun. She kept going, don't you take a picture of me. She was so worried about me to take a picture of her. So I snuck one. I wasn't supposed to. And then once we're done, she goes, let's take a picture. And she sits up. And I'm like, you just sit. But it was fun. We got to go downtown, what was then downtown, and go to, that's our old mailbox. That's P.O. Box 1142, down at what was the main post office back in the day. There's no phone. There's no internet back in 1978. Only way we had contact from the States is mail that would take 2 or 3 weeks to get to us and would come to that box. We used to fight for whose turn it was to go downtown and check the mail. That was our link. That little red spot right there was our link to home for 7 years. My parents lived there, and I was there for 5 of those. So that we got to kind of all see it for the first time again together. This is some South African folks that we met, and just fantastic people. This guy on the right was one of the song leaders. I think the fellow on the left did some song leading as well for the event. Just so many great people. Whoops. This again, that's Molabatsi. This is my sister, Bakanuki. You know who that is. And that's the church is called Potejo Yahakerestete. That's just, actually it really means assembly of Christ, or Church of Christ in Setswana. And so by the time we got back, this is us in Dallas, Texas, and we're smiling because we've just had a 16-and-a-half-hour plane ride, and we are just so excited to not be on that plane. But we'd had lunch, and we realized, man, we already missed the States. A couple of things all of this reminds me of. That we have a mission, we have a mandate. It's not optional, and it's not just an appendage, a sideline thing. As Christians, the people of Jesus, this is who we are and what we're to be about. And the mission was spelled out by Jesus in what we call the Great Commission, where he said to them, and he says to us, go. He says, I've been given all authority, Jesus says, in heaven and on earth. And based on that, he commands us, go. And the word in the original means literally, as you are going, because we're already going. Tomorrow, most of us will go somewhere, and whether it's to Walmart or to the gas station or to work or school or wherever it may be. But he says, as you are going, teach, preach, baptize, disciple. Bring them up in the Lord. And so we got to be able to do that. Some people can go far, others can send, and it takes both. And but we can all go to the places we're already going to, right here at home, and fulfill that gospel. And what's the message? When we go, what do we say? Do we give a program? Do we give just a facts about a building or place? No, here's the message. Philip, on the road in the chariot with the Ethiopian gentleman, he says, he opened his mouth, and starting from that scripture in Isaiah 53, he's preached Jesus to him. That's what we do. That's the message. Jesus is the message. Got to preach Jesus. If you preach some other gospel, as Galatians 1 will tell you, but it's not the gospel of Jesus, it's not the message of Christ, it's anathema. It's not what God wants. Well, how do we do that? Romans 10 will tell us, how then shall they call upon him in whom they have not believed, and how shall they believe in him whom they have not heard? Faith comes, in verse 17, from hearing, and hearing by the word of Christ. That's why we got to be people of the book. To learn it, to study it, to apply it, and then to share it. Because we're sitting in the middle of a lost world right here. Lost people all around us. Many of them we know. They're friends, neighbors, relatives, co-workers. And let's take the word to them. So that's Gaborone, Botswana. It's a place that's dear to my heart. And I just wanted to end by saying thank you. Thank you to this congregation. Some of you helped me get there. And I am beyond grateful, because I couldn't have done it otherwise. And it was so meaningful and so special to all our family and the people we got to be there with. So thank you, and God bless you all. And don't forget, as we end, remember, please stay for lunch if you can. And members, let's take 5 before we get there. If there are any here that need to respond to the invitation, I encourage you to do so. Make your needs known while we stand and sing.